Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, I'm delighted to be here today to introduce Tori James, our speaker for the International Women's Day 2012 lecture. My name is Rebecca Matthews and I'm the Director of the British Council here in Wales, and we are the UK's international organisation for cultural relations and educational opportunities. We're very pleased to be co-hosting today's lecture with the National Assembly. This is the first joint initiative in our new agreement between the British Council and the National Assembly, working together in partnership to promote Wales on an international stage, to strengthen and broaden international opportunities for the people of Wales, with particular emphasis on youth. And it's a real pleasure within that partnership to work with such dynamic leadership under the presiding officer, Rosemary Butler, and with her team, including Dr. Non Gwilym. Rosemary is a great friend to the British Council, a great supporter and advocate of our work around the world, especially in gender equality. And only last week, she welcomed a party of Libyan and Jordanian women leaders who were here to share with and learn from the National Assembly and the Welsh Government about building democratic processes for their own emerging democracies. These women leaders were sharing in an open spirit with a fair and inclusive Wales and with women from all tiers of Welsh public life. International Women's Day is, of course, all about acknowledging the achievements of such women, from a general respect and appreciation to a real celebration of women's economic, political, and social achievements. You normally associate the gradual build of all of these attributes in women of a more mature age, shall we say, but not so with our speaker today. At the tender age of 30, Tori James has already achieved the respect, appreciation and admiration of her peers here in Wales and indeed around the world. It's actually quite difficult to fit into 5 minutes all the extraordinary things that Tori has done and you could say about her. But let me start with the fact that by 25, she had already achieved 3 record-breaking expeditions. She was the youngest British woman and the first Welsh woman to climb Mount Everest. And she was a member of the first ever all-female team to complete the Polar Challenge. So where in Wales do you build such remarkable women? Well, as you'll read in the programme, Tori grew up on a farm in Pembrokeshire. At 14, she started the Duke of Edinburgh's award, and after completing her goal, she realised it was the expedition element of that award that triggered her sense of adventure. In 2000, she was a member of a 4-week expedition to Diwrnod Glacier in Iceland, studying glaciology and learning how to ice climb, abseil, and ski cross-country. Even reading that scares me. And by my calculation, she was only 18 at the time. Tori went on to study for a geography degree at Royal Holloway, University of London, focusing on the cryosphere. For those of you who don't know what that means, as I didn't, it's anything to do with snow and ice cover on the Earth's surface. And she also looked with that incredibly curious and daring mind of hers at cultures of exploration. Following her degree, she began work for the British Schools Exploring Society based at the Royal Geographical Society in London. And it was whilst here she became part of a team determined to make the record books. In May 2005, her team, the Pink Lady Polecats, I love that, became the first ever all-female team to complete the Polar Challenge, finishing the race in 6th position out of 16 teams and beating some all-male teams along the way. When you read in the programme that Tori raced through polar bear territory, across constantly shifting sea ice in whiteout conditions and in temperatures of minus 40 degrees, you'll understand that we are talking about a very driven and committed woman. And when I add that the team raised £30,000 for breakthrough breast cancer, you'll know that this is a woman who thinks through adversity about helping her fellow women. Tori went on to climb the world's 6th highest mountain in Tibet, and as the only woman member of the team who successfully reached the summit, Tori earned the accolade of the highest Welsh woman in history. Not satisfied with that, Everest was the next challenge, and on 24th of May 2007, Tori reached the summit, becoming the youngest British female at 25 and the first ever Welsh woman to climb Everest. Tori continues to challenge herself today, why am I not surprised, whilst also supporting a number of youth organisations, some of which helped her during her teenage years. The determination, motivation, and sheer grit it must have taken to make it through these challenges is really awe-inspiring. And she is, for me, one of those women who, as Diane Ackerman put it, lives the width and not just the length of life. She is someone we are proud to say comes from Wales, a truly inspiring woman, and we are honoured to have her with us here today. Please let's welcome to the stage Tori James.
Rebecca, thank you for that lovely introduction. Prananda, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen too. It really is a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to celebrate International Women's Day. The day got off to a good start for me because I turned up in the office to find a Ferrero Rocher on my desk. And one of the gentlemen in my office had gone round and popped a Ferrero Rocher on on all the ladies' desks. So that was a truly lovely surprise when I walked into the office this morning. It doesn't happen every day at GE, trust me. So International Women's Day means different things to different people. It'll mean something different to you. It'll mean something different to women all around the world today. And just this morning, there's been a debate about women in public life and how we can readdress the gender imbalance that we've got in government, in politics. I've just come from GE Aviation where I work, and we've had a Women's Network event this morning, which was titled, "What Does She Do That I Don't?" And unfortunately had to leave the discussion, but it was a great little discussion about looking at why certain women in the business or every woman in the business is successful at different things and what they do, what specific things do they do that makes them successful as a person and in the job that they do. And later this afternoon, I'm really looking forward to joining the bus tour that the charity Llamau are organising, which is touring Cardiff with loads of other inspirational women on board. And they're hoping to inspire some of the people that they work with, vulnerable women and homeless young people. So that's just a snapshot of some of the things that are going on today. International Women's Day is a chance to celebrate all the things that women have achieved, and we've achieved an incredible number of things since 1911 when the very first International Women's Day was held. But there are still common issues around the world that hundreds and hundreds of organisations are shouting about today. You know, gender discrimination, the inequalities, the injustices that women face around the world. And in thinking about today, I just took a moment to think about some of the women that have inspired me. And I naturally tend towards those women who have achieved in a sporting field and in physical activities. And some of the moments that stand out in my mind are when Dame Kelly Holmes won the 800 metres in the Athens Olympics. You know, I got involved. I was there screaming at the television. You know, there's that emotional attachment with somebody else's achievement. The same with Dame Ellen MacArthur when she sailed single-handedly around the world in the fastest time possible. And our very own Nicole Cook, who came round that final bend in the Beijing Olympics in the pouring rain to win the women's road cycling race. But why do they inspire me? I think it's because when I look at them, I can see the determination and the commitment, the sacrifices that they've made to achieve that final moment in that race. Everything that they do over a number of years, whether it's a year or 8 years worth of training, is all focused on that one moment, that crossing the finish line or achieving that goal. And I find that hugely, hugely inspirational. And I think as a child at school, I took inspiration from girls above me who achieved things in sport. And you'd see them up on the wall. Perhaps they got a cap for Wales in cross-country running, or they played last weekend for the county team. And I always wanted to achieve something like that. And little did I know that at the end of 2005, having come back from the Polar Challenge, that I would be presented with the opportunity to become the first ever Welsh woman to climb Mount Everest. And like you sitting there, I was sat there thinking, this challenge is enormous. my first reaction was, it's not possible. Great idea, wonderful. Wouldn't it be great to become the first Welsh woman to climb Mount Everest? But it's just too big. I mean, it's just, just out of my reach. I'm never going to get there. But there were two emotions at play, and one was excitement of what could be, what the future could hold, and the other was of this apprehension, of this fear of failure. What if it all went wrong? I'm sure you can think of some of the dangers that are present on Everest, the cold, avalanches, the lack of oxygen that's up there. But there was the fear of failure of perhaps making a fool out of myself in front of friends, family, work colleagues. There was that bit of me that didn't want that chatter in the corner going, oh, have you seen what Tori's doing? She'll never do that. God, she's bitten off way too much than she can chew on this one. And I was nervous and I was worried about what other people might think of me attempting this challenge. But the opportunity was too big to throw away. And I just thought, I've got to go for this. The time is right. I couldn't find any excuses why not to go for it. I had to. So there was 18 months ahead of me. And in that time, I had to overcome a number of different challenges. In terms of what I could tick off already, I was happy to tick off that I could survive in -40 temperatures. That was something that I'd practiced in the Polar Challenge, and I was quite happy with. You've already heard how I love snow and ice, and I genuinely do love snow and ice. So -40, no problem. Talking to other climbers about the climbing skills required to climb Everest, I was almost there. It was going to take just a little bit more practice and preparation to get my climbing skills right. The big unknowns, though, for me, was the fitness. Could I ever get that fit? Could I train that hard to climb Everest? And what about the altitude? I'd never been to 8,850 metres, a mere 29,000 feet, just the height that, an airline would fly at over Everest. So how did I know that my body was physiologically going to cope with this? And in addition to that, there was, of course, the huge cost of climbing Everest. The budget I had to take me through all of the training expeditions, cover the cost of kit, equipment, insurance, oxygen support, was £54,000 just for me, and I was part of a team of 4 of us. That in itself was a huge risk, never mind about the physical risks of climbing Everest. It was this financial risk that I was about to send myself hurtling towards. And so it was about trying to be clever, about presenting a package to potential sponsors that would entice them to support me. And it was more difficult than I thought. I went to potential sponsors with a small track record of having been successful on the Polar Challenge and having worked successfully with Pink Lady Apples, who was my sponsor for that expedition. But in approaching people to say, look, I'm attempting to become the first Welsh woman, would your company like to support me? I was met with rejection after rejection after rejection. I don't know what it was, but I took a lot of it personally, as I think sometimes, perhaps as women, we do too easily. And I thought, oh, they just don't like me. They don't believe that I can do it. But then there were possibly other reasons. They didn't want to associate their company with something that might go drastically wrong and might end up in the media for all the wrong reasons. But I was persistent. I kept going back to these people saying, I am going to become the first Welsh woman to climb Mount Everest. And the thing that I had to mentally overcome was ignoring the negative comments that people said to me. I actually had people say to my face, oh, Tori, you'll never do that. You think you can climb to the summit of Mount Everest? No way. You'll never do that. In 18 months? No way. Not a chance. But it's about taking those comments and putting them in the bin, because that's where they belong. On the flip side, there were so many people who knew me, friends, colleagues, family, and who were so supportive. And it's about keeping those in the forefront of your mind to help you achieve in your goal and to help you get to where you want to get to. Having persisted for almost the entire 18 months and with just a week to go before myself and the team, which consisted of 3 guys who were all studying at London Business School, we finally secured that all-important sponsor. And in addition to the fundraising events that we'd organised and also the amount of personal funds that I'd put into the expedition, we did finally get the funds to fly out to Kathmandu and to get out to Everest. If I look back now, I think, the preparation was harder than the actual expedition itself. But, on that plane out to Kathmandu, we were only halfway there, not even halfway there. We had such a challenge ahead of us in terms of spending 2.5 months on Everest. That's how long it takes to climb that mountain. It's a long time in a tent. It's a long time without a shower. It's a long time without my hairdryer and makeup bag and all of the lovely things that we have around us when we're at home. And I think, ahead of me, the advice that I was given was just take one day at a time. Yes, I had this goal, I had this vision of reaching the top of the world and becoming the first Welsh woman, but it was actually about taking one day at a time and just setting yourselves up and preparing yourself for those daily challenges. All too often we're worried about what's happening, 6 or 10 months down the line, but what's happening today? What can you do today to make a difference to that outcome at the end? And that meant, eating and drinking properly. It meant protecting yourself from the cold, from frostbite, looking after yourself, working as a team with the other people. Because there were days when I felt brilliant and I was able to help my teammates, but there were days where I was truly, truly in need of help from others. I may have been struggling with a headache from the altitude. Altitude manifests itself in so many horrible ways. It does horrible things to the human body. You can't sleep at night, you lose your appetite, you feel nauseous. And whilst I'd trained like a semi-professional athlete, if you like, for this expedition, I felt lethargic and tired and demotivated on the expedition. It just seemed like such a struggle. And, there were terrifying places on the expedition, and fear was really factored in the experience. The icefall is this part of the mountain where blocks of ice are basically moving downhill under their own weight, and you have to wind your way through this area of the mountain hoping that these blocks of ice stay where they are. And you need to go through in the early hours of the morning when the icefall is frozen solid, so that you are less at risk of them falling once the sun has been on them during the afternoon. And when they might melt. And they have been known to kill climbers and kill Sherpas in the icefall. So this place was unpredictable, uncontrollable. There was actually nothing you could do. It was like playing Russian roulette, taking yourself through the icefall, which in itself took about eight hours to get through. On the mountain, some of the other enemies, if you like, it was actually the sun and the heat. On part of the expedition, it wasn't the cold, it was actually the danger of sunburn, of heat exhaustion and heat stroke that we were at risk of as climbers. And again, it was debilitating, having to cover every single part of you. And I don't do very well on a hot day in Wales, let alone at 6,500 metres on the side of Everest. But I learnt a lot of things during the expedition. That yes, it was about your physical form and your fitness, but it was so much more about what goes on up here. And I think we all probably have a little voice in our heads that when you're embarking on a new challenge or you're about to apply for a new role at work or a new job, there's this annoying little voice that goes, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I haven't got the right skills. I haven't done that before. It's that confidence. And it's about teaching yourself. And for me, it was about teaching the little voice in my head to remain positive at all times and to think, I can overcome that challenge. And on Everest, as we were working our way up through the camps, and the thing I haven't explained to you is that you don't just climb Everest by going from base camp up to camps 1, 2, 3, 4, and then making your way to the summit. You do this crazy, crazy thing of going from base camp up to camp 1 and then coming back down again to base camp and having a rest, thankfully. But then going from base camp up to camp 2 this time and then coming back down to base camp. And that's so that you can acclimatise, Because every time you go that little bit higher, there's less oxygen for your body to breathe, and it's got to get used to that. If you go straight up, you will develop acute mountain sickness, pulmonary edema, cerebral edema. Those things are killers, and every year, sadly, climbers lose their lives to those on Everest. So, mentally you had to overcome this going up and coming back down, retracing your footsteps, going back to the start. And at the end of every day, I honestly wondered how I would get myself out of my sleeping bag the next day to take the next step further up the mountain. I was just so tired and exhausted. And with that, altitude, you don't feel like eating, and so your body is struggling even more to find the energy to go up the mountain. Once we got as high as Camp 3, it was time to come back down again and go for the summit attempt proper, if you like. And I was ready to go. I felt fit. The team felt fit. There were 4 of us. In that team, I was climbing with the first ever, hopefully, Egyptian to climb Mount Everest. That's what Omar was hoping to achieve. So just in a team of 4 of us, there were some key records to be had. And we all left base camp, got as far as Camp 2, and then I became incredibly ill. I'd drunk something or I'd eaten something in the water that seriously didn't agree with me. And I won't go into the details now, but you wouldn't want to have felt like this in the comfort of your own homes, let alone on the side of Everest. And at that point, I actually had to make the decision to turn around and go back down to base camp and let 2 of my teammates carry on to the summit of Mount Everest to achieve the thing that all 4 of us had set out to do from the outset as a team. At the time, I knew it was the right decision. I could not go on. I was physically not capable of going on. And I knew I had to just cut my losses, and instead of going higher up the mountain and perhaps becoming more ill, to go back down. So there was me sat at base camp, listening out when my teammates worked their way up to Camp 4 and then on to the summit of Mount Everest. And I heard them come over the radio. Base camp, we're on the summit of Mount Everest, came the voice. And I was gutted. They were 3,000 meters above me into this area of the mountain that was a complete unknown to me, and they'd done it, and I hadn't. And of course, I was so pleased for them, but I should have been with them there, celebrating on the summit, but instead I was back down at base camp. And so many things were out of my control. Would I get better? And would we get the right weather conditions on the summit? Because there's only one time of year that you can climb Everest, and there's a very small weather window, and that's basically at the end of May and into June each year. Fortunately, I did recover, and a week later, I was given the opportunity to go for the summit of Mount Everest. What I've got now is a short video that just describes some of what climbing to the summit of Mount Everest was like for me. And you're the very first audience to see this video. I was approached just over a week ago. Could I be interviewed, and could this lovely man, Matt Callanan, make a video? So have a look at this now. And I'll be absolutely honest that I still have to pinch myself that I did it. But I have reflected on perhaps why and how I managed to do that. And I think, I have to give my parents credit, first and foremost. The support that they've given me over the years has been this brilliant mixture of just do your best. That has been the advice. But also, just pointing out, okay, you need to get X number of GCSEs, you need to get X number of A-levels, but just a really healthy mix of encouragement and support, but never pressure to achieve anything in particular. My parents have just always been willing to support, anything that I've had an interest in, and support, hobbies and talents, and that has been really key. But another organisation that hasn't been mentioned yet is when I was about 10 years old, I was a girl guide. And I know that girl guiding is a movement today, one of the beneficiaries, I believe, of International Women's Day donations. And this is an organisation, and it's women supporting other women creating opportunities for young girls. And if I think back, you know, Girl Guiding actually gave me my first overseas experience without my parents. And I was encouraged to go for things. I was encouraged to try new things. Those of you that are familiar with what goes on in Girl Guides, you know, you identify your interests and your hobbies, and you pick a badge and you set a goal and you work towards it. And this is really the basis of achieving anything in our lives. It's about identifying what really motivates you. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? For me, it was mountains. Crazy, I know. But for me, it really was mountains and the outdoors and this physical challenge. But having had that experience now, I can take that into other areas of my life and use it in ways to benefit my career. I still maintain that the outdoors and climbing Everest and all of the different physical activities that I get involved with is my hobby. It's my getaway. It's the thing that I look forward to on the weekends. It's the thing that I enjoy more than anything else. And I think we have to continue to encourage young people, and organisations like Girl Guides were definitely one of the key things when I was a child that led me to look at achieving things and going for things and pushing myself, taking myself out of my comfort zone. But I think more than that, one of the things I've learned is to have a vision. And, today across Wales, around the world, there'll be so much debate as, why women are underrepresented in certain professions and organisations and in boardrooms. And I think, women have got to have the vision. We've got to want to get there. And it's how do we create that vision? And I think International Women's Day provides us that chance to shout about the wonderful things that are available in the spheres of politics and other areas of life where there is this gender imbalance and where there aren't perhaps enough women, as many women as we'd like, within these organisations. It's about having that vision and visualising yourself achieving. And a lot of this comes from sport. And what I've learnt through sport, I think, can help me visualise other things that I want to achieve in my career, and can help all of us achieve the things that we want to do. It doesn't have to be a sporting achievement. Interestingly, though, I turned up just at the start of this event, and two ladies were telling me about the physical challenge that they're going to put themselves through in a couple of weeks. And, one of the things I want to urge you all to do is perhaps look at sport, look at physical activity, and see if you want to take a challenge in that area, because trust me, it can help you achieve in the other areas of your life where you want to achieve. Yes, there are the benefits of feeling fit and healthy, but there are so many more benefits to sport and the outdoors, enhancing, competition within business, and teamwork, and the planning and preparation that goes into a sporting event or a physical challenge such as climbing Everest. I think you can take that and leverage it in all the things that you're interested in. I know there are people sitting in this audience smiling now. You've probably got something on your mind that you want to achieve. And you know what? It doesn't matter how big or small it is. For me, life is about having a goal, whether it's something small that you can achieve in a day, or something huge that will take years to achieve. It's about having that goal and working towards it. And with that, you've got to have a vision. And it's okay to daydream. It really is okay to daydream. I tell that to a lot of people. It's good to daydream. Positive daydreaming. Set your sights on something and go for it. You really have to reach for the stars and set yourself a goal that you think is perhaps unachievable. Work through it, and it won't be, and you will get there. Surround yourselves with a supportive network. That might be friends, it might be family, it might be work colleagues. Talk to people, become part of a network, whether that's the International Women's Day network or networks that exist all around us through some of the wonderful organisations that are represented in this room today. And share that goal with others. If you keep it to yourself, it'll never happen. You've got to share it with other people. So my message to you today is to have that vision. Give sport a go. Give yourself a physical challenge. I've got to encourage you to do that, haven't I? Come with me, perhaps on the weekend. We'll go and climb a local mountain. One thing's for sure is is that, we've got no shortage of wonderful physical challenges on our doorstep in Wales. And for me, that's what's brilliant about actually living in Cardiff and in South Wales at the moment. I might have shown you footage from around the world, but there's so much on our doorstep here in Wales, and that's something also to be really, really proud of today. So I do hope you enjoy the rest of International Women's Day. There's hundreds of things to celebrate, and I'd love to take any questions from you now about anything that I may have spoken about or mentioned in my expeditions. Thank you very much for listening. I believe there is a roaming mic if anybody does have a question. Yep.
Hello, thanks. That was really inspiring. What's your next challenge then?
I do have a small trip to Canada in August. With my work at GE Aviation, I run the Duke of Edinburgh's Award for our apprentice intake of engineering apprentices, and they're hoping to achieve their gold Duke of Edinburgh's Award by paddling through the Algonquin National Park in Canada. And that is going to be a challenge in itself. We've started our paddling training. In fact, there's a session this afternoon which I need to go and catch up with. And that's going to be a challenge to get all 9 participants up to the level where they've got to be able to paddle themselves. So that's one of the sort of outdoor challenges that I'm working on this year. Any other questions? One. Oh. Is there another microphone? There's one question just down here. Just at the front.
You're so petite. Everest is so big. You talked once about how you got over those terrible chasms. What helped you to overcome the fears of getting over the huge gaps that you had to achieve being so petite?
There's quite a funny story about trying to get across these crevasses, these huge holes in the ice, because there are ladders that bridge them so you can get through the icefall, because it's just this jumble of huge blocks of ice. And at base camp I used to get teased because they said, Tori, you're only small. Your feet must be also really small. How are your feet going to span from one rung of the ladder when it's laid horizontally to the next? Surely you're just going to fall through it. But little did they know that I have size 7 feet and that wasn't going to be be a problem at all. So that caught a few people out. But no, in terms of the icefall, it has set climbers back on many occasions. They haven't been able to get through the icefall just because of these ladders and these crevasses that you have to cross. But that's where having an end goal is really, really important. And I think for me it was a case of just telling myself, if you can't cross this ladder, you're not going to get to the summit of Everest, and you're not going to achieve the thing that you've worked tirelessly for 18 months, and it'll all be put to waste. So really, I suppose at the time I was saying, get a grip and sort it out and get on with it. Other people are doing this. There's no reason why I can't do it too. And that was where the mental side of this challenge really, came to the fore. And if I had to weigh it up, perhaps the Everest challenge in itself is perhaps 90% mental and only 10% physical. Yeah.
Hi, Tori. You mentioned about having to support your 3 male colleagues going up the mountain. How do you physically support 3 men and their backpacks and all of the stuff that you have to take when you're physically a lot smaller than them? How do you weigh up that mentally and physically?
People often need support on Everest when they're tired and exhausted. And it's actually the simple things that make the biggest difference on Everest, such as eating and drinking, and forcing people to eat and drink, because without that you simply cannot get going. And And also, when you get cold and you are verging or perhaps on hypothermia, your brain isn't working properly for yourself. So it's about physically getting a fleece jacket, getting a coat, and putting it on that person. So I never really had to sort of carry an extra rucksack on my back as such. But it's about looking out for other people and looking at changes in character. And why have they gone quiet? Is it because they're cold all of a sudden? And, you know, that's a skill that is useful in everything that we do, the people that we work with, in the businesses and charities that we work in. So, yeah, and within that, it's about getting to know your team. It would be pointless turning up on Everest if you didn't know your teammates. And so those 18 months of preparation that I've mentioned involved a lot of getting to know each other. And even for the Polar Challenge, we took that perhaps to an extreme where we used to write essays about each other and share them. And a lot of things would come to light in those essays. But, you know, we're all told to give feedback and accept feedback, and that was a huge part of the Everest Challenge as well.
Thank you, Tori. It was really inspiring hearing of your experiences, and I'm really delighted to hear you saying about sport as well as something that can help with confidence and give somebody a challenge. For me, Billie Jean King was one of my inspiring women. Billie Jean King, the tennis player, because she fought for women professional players at the time, back in the late 60s, early 70s. But I wanted to ask you, how did you prepare? What did your training involve before the challenge?
Sure. The key thing for me was working with Dr. Justin Roberts, who was at the University of Hertfordshire, and he took control, if you like, of our nutritional intake during the preparation, our psychological preparation, which included NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and also our physical fitness training and VO2 max testing. So the wonderful thing in the training was that we did have this coach, and we did have someone to give us direction and to monitor us and to set milestones. And that was key, setting of milestones and knowing that, you know, by X number of months into the training preparation, you should be here. You can't just kind of wing it and expect to turn up on Everest one day. So the training was intensive. I trained for six days every week for over a year. And that was a mixture of endurance training, obviously the climbing skills and mountaineering skills, going up to North Wales and Scotland and over to Chamonix in the French Alps, as well as the cardiovascular training as well, and things like balance and core stability for those ladders that Helen has mentioned. So, you know, and the juggling act that I had every single day when I woke up to prepare for the expedition was, do I go out and get fit so that I can climb the mountain, or do I go out and get the money that I need to climb the mountain? And, you know, we all find ourselves prioritizing different things in our daily lives. And it was a case of, well, what if I get fit and I spend all my time training, but then I haven't got the money to go, so what's the point? But then what if I spend all my time and energy trying to get the money to go, and then I'm not fit enough and I turn up and, you know, it's all been a waste of time anyway. So it was this constant juggling act of trying to do two things at once, if not more, to make sure that it was successful. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a case of follow that then, isn't it? It's a bit like the dust cart after Lord Mayor's show, I think, is the old saying. But I'm sorry I couldn't hear Tori speak this morning, but I have heard her speak before, and I'm sure, just looking at your faces, you're actually in awe and enraptured. So thank you. How can such a little woman do so much? It's just amazing. As you know, this is the first International Women's Day that the National Assembly has actually decided that we will support. We had a fantastic breakfast session earlier on in the morning, and I see some of you have actually stayed. So you've obviously had a a day for the King or the day for the Queen. I'm not sure what it is. But I was very pleased when the British Council wanted to take part in our day, and when Rebecca Matthews said, yeah, we would like to, we thought, who can we have as a speaker? And having heard Tori speak before, there really wasn't anybody else for today. She's quite inspirational. But to work with the British Council to celebrate International Women's Day is really excellent. I say the first year, we're hoping to move on next year. And the fact that Tori is supporting Clamau, which is an organisation that I think you all need to know more about, and you need to be perhaps supporting in some way if you possibly can. But it's interesting how the themes from this morning have carried through Tori's speech, particularly on fear. We heard this morning about the fear of making a mistake, a woman making a mistake, the fear of actually opening the door for the first time. So the fear of climbing Mount Everest just pales in significance when you have to go and see, you know, about a job when you've never had a job before. But it's very important that we do, as women, make sure that we help other women. As I said earlier, a lot of you are now at the beginning of your careers and you're looking for help from someone else. So I'm hoping that those who have moved up the ladder won't pull the ladder up, won't pull it up behind you, will make sure you offer your hand to someone else. Very important that we do that, because over 50% of the population of Wales alone are women, and it's a resource the country cannot afford to ignore. So we need the support of men to make sure that women do get equality of opportunity. And we all talk about quotas, that we should have so many percentage of seats left for women and so many places on boards left for women. I would like to see that change and say we will leave 2 seats on a 20-member board to men. And I think we need to be much more proactive and assume that, you know, the percentage that's left is not for us, it is for other people. I know that we are going to have some refreshments and that Tori will be available to answer some questions, but Tori, you are an inspiration. But if Tori can do it, as she said, anybody can do it, except me, because I couldn't do it. But I would like to thank Nong William and her team here for actually making the arrangements. I think it's been incredibly successful. And I look forward to working with the British Council on, you know, making sure that Wales and the women of Wales take their place in the world and show other people how we can do it here. We're a small nation, but we're very beautiful and we intend to be very clever. And I think that will make a difference to the whole world. So diolch yn fawr, enjoy your refreshments, and I'm sure Tori is available. If you have a photograph taken with us, she can charge you £10 for Clamau. Diolch yn fawr.
Cynulliad Cenedlaethol Cymru yw'r corff sy'n cael ei ethol yn ddemocrataidd i gynrychioli buddiannau Cymru a'i phobl, i ddeddfu ar gyfer Cymru ac i ddwyn Llywodraeth Cymru i gyfrif. I gael rhagor o wybodaeth ac i ganfod pwy sydd yn eich cynrychioli, ewch i cynulliadcymru.org neu gallwch chi'n dilyn ar Facebook a Twitter. The National Assembly for Wales is the democratically elected body that represents the interests of Wales and its people, makes laws for Wales, and holds the Welsh Government to account. For more information and to find out who represents you, go to assemblywales.org or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.